Welcome back to the channel. Thank y'all for hanging with me on this Tuesday. So I want to talk about search baits because this is a term that gets thrown out a lot. And depending on where you fish, you could be on a highland reservoir and your best search bait could be a wiggle wart, a crankbait that dives 10 feet, or you could be on a big grass flat in Florida or the Potomac River and your best search bait could be a speedworm. So obviously two completely different baits. Depending on where you fish, the search baits are going to change, but also the time of year is going to change the search baits. And I'm going to go into that, but I really want to tell you one of the most profound things that I've come up with in probably 20 years of competitive tournament bass fishing is that when you go and find a bass and you're looking for fish that you can catch in a day or two, if you catch them on a bait that is a reaction type lure like a spinner bait or a topwater, and you think you can go back and catch them on those baits the next day, it's not always going to work out for you. Sometimes you go catch them on a chatterbait, you can go back the next day and catch them on a chatterbait. But don't be blindsided if they get off those reactionary type lures and you have to figure out a different way to catch them. So when you're catching them on the other end of the spectrum, like a slow moving bait on the bottom, it could be a Texas rig in the springtime around spawning fish. It could be that speed worm on a grass flat where you're fishing it kind of slow, you're letting it sink to the bottom, it's not moving and getting them to react. It's just kind of right there in front of their face and they're biting it. Those type baits are a lot easier to go and catch them the next day. So if you're looking for fish for Saturday and you're out there Thursday and Friday, something slow moving on the bottom like flipping or swimming a worm or just any type of Texas rig or even like a wacky rig or a Cinco or a shaky head, those fish are always going to be a lot easier to catch on those same baits in a day or two. So don't be completely blindsided if you went and caught all your fish on a hybrid hunter and then you have to change to a swim jig or a Texas rig or anything else in a couple days when you go back to those fish. Now, whenever I'm looking for fish, it doesn't matter if there's 1,000 fish in a little tiny area and I know that area is going to get blown out. You know, let's say you have a north wind on Saturday, it's going to be blowing 20. I'm probably not going to be fishing any of those banks that aren't protected from a north wind, even when I'm out there Thursday and Friday. Those fish are a mirage. It doesn't matter if there are, like I said, 1,000 on that spot. If I can't fish it the day that I really want to catch them there, who cares? I'm not even going to go look on those places. But let's go back to what I'm saying about being able to go and catch the fish on the same bait you caught them on the day or two before, because I think we need to kind of understand that before I start going into time of year and different search baits, because search baits do change as the time goes on. So when you have a bait that's super loud, like a buzz bait, super flashy, like a spinner bait, makes a lot of vibration like a chatterbait, you're getting those fish to react a lot of times. Now, if you have fish that are in a feeding mood and they're going to react every day, it's easy to go back and catch those fish. But a lot of times those baits are just going to tell you that there are fish in the area. The part of the pattern that is being left out in that scenario is that you can go back to those same fish and catch them on those flashy, loud, vibrating in your face, the fish know you're there type baits. All those baits really tell you is that there are fish here. They don't necessarily put the whole puzzle together and saying that, yeah, if you caught one here on a chatterbait on Thursday, you can come back and catch one here on a chatterbait on Saturday. That's where it differs from slow moving baits on the bottom. You could find a stretch in the spring where you're flipping, and most likely there's fish that are going to be close to spawning or spawning, and you can go back and catch those fish. I'm not saying you're going to catch the exact same fish, even though sometimes you do. There will be other fish around those general areas that you can go back and catch. Now, why I bring this whole scenario up is when we get into the summer, we get into the fall, a lot of times you'll go down a stretch and you'll make a throw out there with a buzz bait and one will blow up on it. He won't get your hooks. That is not telling you that you can go back there and make 10 casts with a buzz bait in 2 days and catch fish. You'll have to refigure out how they're there. So let's talk about this time of year search baits, because they do change. I did a video yesterday and I talked about I don't really search with a swim jig and a spinner bait this time of year like I did in the post spawn the spawn and the pre-spawn, because you need fish to react. A lot of times, if you go through those areas with those baits this time of year, they're not even going to react. They're not even going to show themselves. You'll have no idea they're there because they've already been around spinnerbaits. They've already been around swim jigs. They need something more natural. It's something that they haven't seen and something that they think is real. So come through those areas with a buzzbait, with a spook, with a prop bait, with a frog, with a chugger or a popper. So a topwater is going to be my favorite search bait. And then when you have to come back in a day or two to try to re-catch those fish, that's when you can break out that swim jig. That's when you can get really specific. Maybe you see a bunch of shad. Then you can bust out that spinner bait. But as far as going and finding fish now, you have to give them the most realistic options, and that is a topwater. So a topwater this time of year is my search bait. Now, there's going to be times where there's more than 5 feet of water above the fish's head. Those fish are out in 10 feet. You're going to have to go try to drag something around to find them, or maybe find them with a crankbait, and then or a chatterbait. And once you get a bite or two, then you can slow down with a 10-inch worm or a speed worm or something like that. But as far as this time of year, just getting the fish to show themselves, it's very important that you are throwing a topwater. But that is not to say that your best bait in 2 days may not be a swim jig, because don't sleep on a swim jig this time of year. That's one thing that I learned in the July, August, hottest times of the year, summer. They get on a swim jig still. So a swim jig works year round, just like a chatterbait, just like a square bill. They're just not the best search baits in these hotter months, but don't take them out of your boat. Probably keep them on your rod. At least one of your rods have something like that tied on, because those fish will get off topwater. They will get down subsurface. They can do that anytime. I just feel like a safer option this time of year is a topwater when you are looking for new areas and new fish. So try that, guys. Good luck to you, and I'll see you on the water.